Good morning. You're here with Shannon from YMC. I'm really excited to be live with you this morning because we are having a very important conversation. We're talking with, I'm going to look at my paper because she has so many amazing accomplishments. We're talking with Dr. Lori Brotto. She is the Executive Director of the Women's Health Research Institute. She is also a professor of obstetrics and gynecology at UBC. And she is a registered psychologist. And today we're talking about a campaign called It's Not in Your Head, so hashtag It's Not in Your Head. And let's get started. So, hi.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm great. It's so good to have you here in not so early morning. I guess it's about 7 a.m. there on the West Coast.
Yeah, it's just past 7, so just getting my day going.
Oh man. Okay. Well, let's get started because we do have a lot of really interesting things to talk about, and I want to make sure that we have time for questions from the audience and for you to share all of your important research. So let's just start at the beginning. What is PVD, and who does it affect? Like, what are we even talking about here?
So PVD is a shorthand way of saying provoked vestibulodynia. Essentially, it's a chronic pain condition that affects about 1 in 5 women. And women who have been diagnosed with PVD will describe any sort of touch to the vulva or vagina as being painful. So sexual activity hurts, using a tampon hurts, going for a pap smear hurts. In some severe cases, even wearing clothes that brush up against the vulva, such as the seam on your jeans, can provoke a sharp shooting, burning pain. So it can be, as you can imagine, quite distressing for women because it interferes with a lot of different life activities.
Yeah, it actually sounds terrible. So is it something that's constant, or does it come and go? Like, are women who are experiencing this always in pain, or is it transient in nature?
Yeah, good question. So, as the title suggests, it's provoked, which means that women who've received a diagnosis of PVD only feel the pain when that area is touched. And so, we're talking about the area that goes around the vagina. It includes the labia minora, or the inner lips, whereas touch to other parts of the thigh, for most women, touching the outer labia or the clitoris is not painful. So, it's specifically when that area is provoked or touched.
Okay. So would you be okay with just going right into the questions?
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. So we actually went out to our community because we know that this is sensitive for a lot of people. And actually in our Twitter party, which we had recently, a lot of people had questions, but a lot of people actually said, I feel very uncomfortable talking about this. I don't talk about this with my doctor. I don't talk about this with my friends. I may be experiencing different, pain symptoms or just things going on with my body that I don't really feel comfortable with. So we went out and asked people in a quiet way to submit their questions, not having to be public with them, but hopefully get some answers. So the first one was, I've read a lot about PVD and it seems to be true for me, but I don't know how to get diagnosed. What should I ask my doctor? Are there specific things that I should ask for related to tests? And would it be discovered during my regular pap smear?
Yeah, great question. And so, first of all, this is a condition that many women suffer in silence with for quite some time. And the research suggests that many women will have their symptoms of pain for up to 5 years before they even receive an accurate diagnosis. So it's really important to talk to your doctor. In most cases, that would be your family doctor or primary care provider. And the diagnosis is made with a combination of two things. The first thing is the woman's story, and the woman's story is the most important clue that she has provoked vestibulodynia. So the story would be consistent with exactly what I've described. Sex hurts, tampons hurt. She avoids any kind of penetration. She's avoiding having pap smears. She's avoiding sexual activity. And yet other kinds of contact around other parts of the body are not painful. So having a really thorough history taking is essential. The second key part is that the doctor does an exam that's called a Q-tip test. And so it's literally the same cotton swab Q-tip that you would use to clean your ears. The physician then takes the cotton swab and lightly touches around the woman's vulva. And she will describe pain immediately when those areas around the vagina are stimulated. And so it's that combination of a thorough exam plus the cotton swab test. Now, what's really important to know is that in the absolute vast majority of cases, there's no signs of pain when a woman is examined. There's no redness, there's no sign of infection, there's no cuts. And so because of that, unfortunately, many women have been dismissed and unfortunately even told this must be in your head because there's
Right.
no sign of infection. I don't see any blistering, there's no cuts, etc. And yet the woman absolutely feels the pain. So we really encourage women to be their own advocates, maybe even download an article that you've read about PVD. Some great links will be provided. Bring it into your doctor and say, I think this might be what I have. Can I have that test?
Yeah, those are great suggestions. And we are moderating in the comments, so we will be sharing some different links as we go along and some different resources. If you have questions or if you've had a personal experience with this, I'd love for you to drop it in the comments. I think a big part of this, and you may agree, we have to start talking about it. And we were joking yesterday. I was actually talking with Erica, and we were talking about planning for this Facebook Live, and she said, why aren't people talking about this? If I had an earache, I wouldn't feel any shame in saying to my friend, oh man, my ear is really hurting today. And my friend probably would feel no shame or concern about saying, oh, maybe it's allergies, or maybe you have an ear infection, or something's going around. But when we talk about, as women, our vagina or our vulva, we kind of clam up, and we don't feel comfortable sharing what's going on with our bodies, especially if it's painful. And especially, I think, if we've heard from our doctors or from other people that, there's nothing wrong with you, it is just in your head. So it's really, it's a challenge. And I think that it's one that probably a lot of women had faced. And it actually goes into our next question, which is, I'm going to my doctor, I'm telling them these things that are going on with me, and they're not responding, or maybe they don't take it as seriously as I would like. So how can I best advocate for myself?
Yeah. So, I think, Shannon, what you've described, that we have so much discomfort around talking about sex and vaginas and
Yes.
vulvas, and yet we know it's a fundamental part of our quality of life. So often, what brings women in to seek treatment is not necessarily the pain itself, but it's interference in the rest of her life. So for a single woman, she's avoiding dating. Because she's avoiding the eventual possibility of having to tell a new partner that sex hurts for her. For women who are in relationships, again, as I mentioned, they're not only avoiding sex, but they often avoid many of the steps or the precursors to sex. So they might
Right.
avoid undressing in front of a partner. They might deliberately start a fight or go to bed at a different time from a partner to avoid sex.
Wow.
And so this condition interferes in so many different parts of a woman's life. Many women with PVD, with time, especially if it's not addressed and managed, can start to develop anxiety, can start to have a reduction in their mood, can start to question their self esteem, question their sense of femininity. Are they still a woman? And so it becomes so important that we become our own advocates, and that we start talking to other women about this. And this is part of why I'm so passionate about this campaign, the It's Not in Your Head campaign, because it might be an opportunity for that woman who is listening, who is suffering in silence, to say, hey, I'm not alone. 1 in 5 women are experiencing exactly what I'm experiencing. I really need to talk to my doctor about this. And if a doctor doesn't listen, or if you do feel like you're dismissed, ask for a referral. Go to a walk-in clinic, ask for a referral to a gynecologist. Keep searching, be your own advocate until someone listens.
That's so great. I'm just going to check here and see if we have any questions coming in. So, Erica asked, does the research include why women choose to suffer in silence? Which I think you kind of just answered. And then Anne says that she's had issues since her son was born, not PVD, but possibly endometriosis. It's been 9 years and she's just now getting to something that's helping her. And so she says she gets it, like she doesn't blame women. And I think again, at the Twitter party, we heard a lot of that. We heard a lot of those types of experiences. So maybe it is a campaign like this talking about it. No, it's not in your head. Women talking to each other about how to advocate, that maybe we'll actually start to see some changes made.
Yeah, and I think sexuality, because often PVD is associated with sexuality or sexual dysfunction, and this is another area where we do a terrible job in advocating for strategies to promote sexual pleasure, addressing problems in sexual response. And so the best thing to do, again, be an advocate, get out, talk to someone, and don't stop until someone listens.
Yeah. So the next question is about sex. So she says, I have a lot of fear surrounding sex because it has been painful. Is there a way to treat that fear? And I would even say, can you recommend maybe specific activities that are good to, I know you mentioned like undressing and starting fights are things that people do to avoid. Are there easy ways to ease back in when you've had this experience and maybe you have been fearful or you have experienced pain? Is there an easy way to kind of get started again so that you can hopefully get over the hump?
Yeah, great question. So it makes sense. By nature, we've evolved to avoid what hurts. So if sex is going to hurt, it absolutely makes sense that you're not only going to avoid that activity, but anything that might possibly lead to sex. As clinicians who work with women with PVD, we also advocate while the woman is having pain to stop what hurts. So we actually would not recommend continuing to have vaginal penetration if it is painful for you.
Of course.
However, when we look at, sex, I think our notions of what sex is, even today in 2018, are really quite narrow. We tend to think in a kind of a heterosexual context. It's penile vaginal sex for women who are in same-sex relationship, again, penetration. And it becomes really important that we think about sex in as broad a way as possible. So think about all the other potentially arousing activities, clitoral stimulation, nipple stimulation, head to toe touch, sensual massage. And this becomes part of our work as clinicians in working with women with PVD, is really encouraging them to expand their repertoire. So we talk about sex as a buffet. So intercourse and penetration might be one item on the buffet,
Right.
but there are so many other options to choose from. We also have fairly strong evidence from the scientific literature that sexual arousal can be analgesic. And what I mean by that is if the woman can discover other ways of becoming sexually aroused, it can actually interfere with some of those pain pathways that go up to the brain and end up dialing down her experience of pain. So it becomes really important that we first and foremost address the avoidance activity. So eliminating all of the other things that she has removed from her sexual repertoire, and then starting to empower her to ask for the kinds of pleasurable activities that would give her arousal.
That's great. And obviously there's a lot of things that you can do. So hopefully she finds something that works for her.
Yeah, and I'll just maybe share quickly for any listeners who are skeptical of this. I'm always so completely touched and pleased when I hear women who have PVD and are able to identify the silver lining. So they come back and they say, yeah, I have pain. Yes, it interferes. Yes, it's terrible. But one of the things that PVD has given me in my sex life is the ability to experiment with all these other ways of being sexual. And it's actually something that I wouldn't have discovered had intercourse not been removed from the menu, so to speak.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I know that we have quite a wealth of content on YMC about exploring sexuality in different healthy ways and different types of things that you can do. So I know that it's definitely an interest of women to expand beyond that traditional male-female intercourse. So that's great to know that it also has positive benefits for people who are suffering. This is another question specifically about symptoms. So she says, sometimes it feels like I have tiny cuts in my vaginal region after intercourse. Why would this occur, and could this be a possible symptom?
Great question. And so what this woman is describing are superficial cuts or tiny cuts, which does happen to some women with vaginal penetration.
Mm-hmm.
This is also why it becomes so important to see a healthcare provider and have a physical exam in order to rule out things like simple cuts, vaginal yeast infections, vaginal ulcers,
Mm-hmm.
lichen sclerosis, which is a skin condition. And so provoked vestibulodynia is not the same as simple cuts. In this case, there actually is a local tear. There's a
Mm-hmm.
reason locally at the site of the vagina and the vulva for why the pain is happening. The treatment also would be quite different in the case of simple cuts than it would be in the case of provoked vestibulodynia. We know that in the case of simple cuts, that sexual activity is the most common cause of it,
Mm-hmm.
whereas in the case of provoked vestibulodynia, we're really talking about a problem in the brain. So the pain sensors in the brain, the pain center is triggering pain when there's no stimulus of pain happening. So the causes for the two are quite different, and it really should be ruled out by a family doctor.
That's so interesting that it's in the head, in your head, but it's not in your head.
Right. It is a bit paradoxical. And,
Yeah,
and that's why we deliberately called it's not in your head, although it is in your brain, as all chronic pain conditions
of
are.
course, of course. So you've talked a lot about symptoms, and you've talked about some possible strategies for women who have been suffering. I would love to know, again, you have a lot of experience in this field. You have lots of amazing titles. You're doing amazing work. Why is this, of all the things that you could focus on, why is this campaign so important to you?
So I'm passionate about women's health, and I'm passionate about empowering women to take charge of their own health.
Mm,
Unfortunately, even to this day in Canada, women don't have the level of health literacy or
mm,
awareness of their own health and ability to advocate and get the answers that they deserve. And provoked vestibulodynia is one absolutely tangible example of,
mm.
yet again, when women are dismissed, when we don't have the accurate information that we need, and yet it is so common. It is something that we do have the ability to manage and treat. And so this is why I'm so passionate about this particular campaign. If this campaign results in even 5 women reaching out and talking to a doctor and getting listened to and validated in the treatment that they deserve, then in my mind, that is success, because those women will then go on, they'll share their story with other women, and the ripple effect will continue.
Yeah, that's so great, and I hope the same thing too. I mean, I hope that this message has touched you. I hope this campaign has touched you, and please, even if you're not personally affected by this, talk to somebody about it. Tell somebody you know, tell your mom, tell your sister, tell your friend, post it on your Facebook page. Be really brave and actually share this video, because I don't know if you would agree, but maybe someone you know in your close circle is actually suffering, and this may be the difference of whether or not they feel like they can go talk to their doctor, and maybe they'll share it with someone else, and maybe we can actually get those 5 people or 50 people or 500 people to advocate for themselves and make a difference. So I think we're about at time. Unless there's anything else specific that you wanted to talk about, I would love for you guys to come and ask additional questions. And Dr. Brotto, I don't know if you would be able to come back later and answer those questions, but we have her. She's amazing. She has all this knowledge. Let's take advantage of it. So drop your questions in the comments. Follow along over the next little while, and even actually go back to the Twitter party, even if you weren't there to participate. If you look at the hashtag, it's not in your head, you're going to see so many questions and comments from people. Maybe you'll relate to those as well. And just read the article. I know it was linked earlier in the comments. I think that this is a really important discussion, and I don't want it to end here. So.
Great. Thanks, Jen. And absolutely, I would be delighted to answer questions to the best of my ability. We haven't talked about treatments. There are some great links that will be provided that provide an overview of the major kinds of treatment. And also our YouTube video, It's Not in Your Head. We talk about some of the research that we've been doing in Vancouver, looking at the role of psychological skills in helping women cope with pain and ultimately reduce their pain.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And thank you everyone who's watched. If you are watching this on a replay, still feel free to drop your questions in. We may be able to get them answered later. And please, please, please share this with someone. Just post it on your page. Just drop it there. You don't even have to say anything about yourself. And maybe you'll make a difference for someone today.
And this Thursday is International Women's Day, March 8, all around the world. What a great opportunity to spread the word and the silence.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for watching.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.